Can Yoni steaming actually help with fertility? Yes, and I am proof. My fertility journey started a long time ago. I had 3 miscarriages, all 3 were undiagnosed, and by the time I had the 3rd one, that's when they started to do blood work. Now, what I found from my blood work was I had PCOS, that's what they diagnosed me with, and fibroids, and they couldn't understand what else was causing the miscarriages, right? So I sat with my doctor, we did the blood work, everything came out pretty normal. And then she said, we just have to get rid of this one fibroid. But be aware, because you already have one, more can come. And sure enough, in a couple years, they did come. I had a couple more fibroids after my fibroid surgery. And with the PCOS, they just told me to take metformin twice a day. And so I diligently did what my doctor told me to do, even though I was a bit concerned that if it's just these 2 things, a lot of women go on and have perfect pregnancies and get pregnant easily with PCOS, well, maybe not with PCOS, but with different forms of PCOS and with fibroids, what's going on with me. I did learn throughout my journey is I needed to start managing my period. My period has always been bad from the time I got it up until literally a couple of years ago. And the way that I managed my period was I started to Yoni steam. Before I Yoni steam, remember I had fibroids, I was diagnosed with PCOS, I had high blood sugar, and then heavy bleeding, which was which led me to be a bit anemic because I would lose so much blood every single month. This is all prior to Yoni steaming. And then when I started to Yoni steam regularly, all of these things just started to reverse. When I finally went to my fertility doctor and they did more blood work and they did an ultrasound, they found that because I had been Yoni steaming continuously for at least 2 years, my fibroids were gone, my cysts were gone, the heavy bleeding was gone, the period pain, it would just depend on the month, but for the most part, I didn't have any period pain. I stopped bleeding through pads. Like I would go through so many pads. Like whenever I got my period, it was just heavy bleeding. And I wasn't even sure if I was ovulating, if I'm being honest with you. But guess what? After I did all my Yoni steaming for about the first year, up until the second one, I was ovulating perfectly fine. So Yoni steaming drastically changed my womb a lot. Another thing that I found out from my doctor was I had a swollen uterus. Now with the uterus being so swollen, it would make it very hard for the egg to attach to it. So I did have to look at my diet to see what was causing it to be so swollen. I used castor oil packs to help with the swelling in my uterus, and then also to help detox my liver and kidneys, to also help with the reproductive system, because those go hand in hand. Like your kidneys and your liver go hand in hand with fertility. So I did watch some of this. I did watch my sodium, and I did a lot of castor oil packs to help with the swelling. And I did heavy Yoni steaming. I Yoni steamed at least twice a week, except when I wasn't on my period, when I was like consistently doing it like hardcore. And then I saw the difference. My period got lighter. I wasn't bleeding as much, which meant I wasn't as tired. I actually worked out on my period, and we're talking day 2, where normally day 2 I would almost be super tired, so exhausted, leave work early because I bleed so much. So the Yoni steaming literally reversed all that. I had better periods than I've ever had in my whole entire life. My last cycle, I had no cramps. I will say that I also drank some Yoni teas as well during my cycle, because the Yoni teas help, because normally I would have taken like a good 800 milligrams of ibuprofen 3 times a day for 2 to 3 days. I mean, it's insane. I'm surprised I'm alive, but I would take that medicine because I would be in so much pain. What I would do instead of taking all that medicine was I drank the Yoni tea. I would drink it throughout the day and I wouldn't have any cramps. And I can successfully, happily tell you that the cramps are not as extreme, or I don't even have them at all, honestly. And I've had other clients too that have drank the tea and they haven't had any issues with their cramps. And then they've also noticed the decrease in the heavy bleeding they had. So I am more than happy to tell you that Yoni steaming does help. Another thing that Yoni steaming helps when it comes to fertility is it preserves your eggs. With the right herb blend, it will absolutely preserve your eggs. And that helps because the older we get, we lose egg quantity, and we want to make sure, if you want to have, particularly women who are 35 and up, that you have enough eggs to be able to reproduce, right? That's really important. I also found that some women have had closed fallopian tubes or had scarring in their fallopian tubes, which make it very difficult to get pregnant. My fallopian tubes were open, but I have had clients who were concerned about maybe only one of them being open, or there was scar tissue, which makes it very difficult for the sperm to travel through. What Yoni steaming does is it starts to heal that scar tissue. And the more it's healed, the more it opens up. So yes, women who have closed fallopian tubes, they should very much consider Yoni steaming because it's a very natural, holistic way of healing those fallopian tubes and opening them up so that everything can travel the way it needs to travel. Women with PCOS and endometriosis have they're considered either high risk when they get pregnant, or it's very difficult to get pregnant in the first place. So what Yoni steaming does is, again, it heals that uterus. So the heavy bleeding that can come from PCOS and endometriosis can be healed through Yoni steaming. The endometriosis is tough because applying heat to when you're bleeding heavily, you just can't do it. It's going to make you bleed more. So my suggestion to my girls who have endometriosis and they want a Yoni steam is either wait till you're not bleeding at all, or you're bleeding but it's very light. I would also suggest to consider something called smoke therapy. If you all want to know a little bit about smoke therapy, leave it in the comments and I'll do another video about it. But smoke therapy is very helpful. It's like a dry version of Yoni steaming, mainly for women with endometriosis. It helps a lot, helps manage the blood flow, uterus strength, and things like that, so that you can conceive. A lot of women also use Yoni steaming in addition to helping their bodies prepare for IVF. Absolutely do that. This doesn't harm it at all. You can talk to your doctors to double check, but what this does is, prior to you conceiving your child or prior to your IVF appointment, you're preparing your uterus to be able to take in your baby and be able to carry your baby full term. Again, the Yoni steam herbs, it depends on the herb blend. Make sure you get a fertility one or miscarriage prevention one. What this does is it helps your uterus prepare the body to carry and carry full term. Doing a Yoni steam before your IVF treatment is extremely important. Here's what we have to be careful of when it comes to Yoni steaming and fertility. During the 2-week wait, specifically if you have your IVF appointment or you know that you've ovulated, you cannot steam after that. Assume that you've already gotten pregnant, because you can't steam when you're pregnant anyway. But you want to make sure that the steaming happens prior to ovulation. So when you steam, it has to be before day 14, because day 14, when you conceive, they're basically the sperm and the eggs, they're going through their whole journey for the next couple weeks. And so you get your positive pregnancy test and then you're done with steaming. Now, if you do not get pregnant, then you're free to start steaming again right after your period. But when it comes to that 2-week wait, there's no steaming. You can't do that because they found that the steam could hurt the pregnancy as the baby is developing. They don't need all that hot steam and all those herbs. The Yoni steam did its job, so you just let it go. The uterus does like to be warm, and so while you may think it is helpful to Yoni steam, it's kind of counterproductive, because once the semen goes in and it attaches itself to the egg and they make their journey through the fallopian tubes and attach itself to the uterus, all that stuff, then it's counterproductive to use a Yoni steam. You have to let it just kind of naturally do what it needs to do. So it's really, really important that you consider Yoni steaming in your fertility journey. Watch what you're drinking and make sure while you're in that 2-week wait phase that your 2-week wait phase, that you are eating what you're supposed to be eating and drinking what you're supposed to be drinking. I'd be very careful, because that's when your baby is being developed and you don't want to be detoxing, and you certainly don't need to steam. When it comes to having a Yoni steaming schedule, here's what I would tell you is, after your period, wait about a day or two and then Yoni steam once or twice that week. It literally is up to you. If you want to Yoni steam once a week, it's helpful. Twice a week, even better. I try to do twice a week, but sometimes my schedule can get really hectic, so I can only do once a week. But if you do twice a week, you do that week after your period's done and a week before you actually conceive. So before you get your happy time together, you want to do Yoni steaming at least twice a week that particular week. I would definitely stress that, because it it relaxes the uterus, it opens it up, it detox, it gets everything out that needs to get out. And then when the semen comes in, you conceive your baby. Duh, right? So I would absolutely tell you to consider those specific 2 weeks to steam at least up to 3 times if you can. If you can only do once a week, do what you can. But if you can do more than that, absolutely. I've known women who did it like every other day. That's excessive and expensive. What I would tell you is if you want to do it 3 times a week for those 2 weeks, cool. But every day, you're just really setting your body on fire. You don't need to do that. And then make sure that the herbs are fertility herbs. Some of the Yoni steams that are out there, they're literally just for rejuvenation. Some of them are for just detox. And then the fertility ones will have specific herbs that help the uterus, strengthen the uterus, prepare the body to carry full term. These are things that you want to look for. If you check out yonimack.com, have a whole list of the different Yoni steams that I sell, and check out the fertility one, also miscarriage prevention ones as well. If you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Drop a comment down below what you think about Yoni steaming and fertility, and if it's helped you at all. Don't forget, if you like what you see, make sure you share, like, and subscribe for more. I appreciate you, Yonis. Happy conceiving.